Welcome to My Favorite CX, a podcast that celebrates exceptional customer experiences. To listen to today's, please choose from one of the following options.
Welcome to My Favorite Customer Experience, the podcast where we talk about awesome customer experiences. I'm joined today by Cindy Slaughter, Marketing Director at Momentum Portfolio. Cindy, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Now, Cindy, you're an estate agent that became a marketeer and then built a marketing agency, and you're now working across the Momentum Portfolio to grow the self-employed property market. But we first met just over 10 years ago at a running event, which we were in a field in Reading, and you were wearing the same club colours as my boss at the time. And I was like, hey, do you know Kendra? And you're like, yeah. And we just ran together for 50 minutes and somehow then just stayed in touch from there. So it's been quite the epic 10 years. Lots has changed since then, including you becoming a marketing director.
It has, yes. And weirdly, I was reflecting on this because I have a habit of just randomly meeting people, whether it be in a random field in Reading, which I have since. I did Endure 24 this year as well and had an absolute blast the last time, and this wasn't you, but the last time was not good. I failed massively. But yeah, so I have a habit of meeting people all over the place. And I seem to remember that you and I caught up when I went to do my estate agency training. So we went and did a loop of the local park run in Bishop Stortford, I think it was.
Yeah, Hatfield Forest at the time. So yeah, I was an event director there, and yeah, that would have been pre-27. Well, it closed down by mid-2020s. Mid-2017. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we went for a run around there, but yeah, the poignant part of that is that I was on my estate agency all-star training course, which actually I came out with 100% on. So I was made for estate agency, apparently.
And that's grown over the last few years. So what does it look like now for you?
So what it looks like now is that I actually exited the industry probably about a year after I had my first daughter. I went into co-working for a bit, and then my career kind of just went a bit spotty for a while. I think everybody has this phase where they kind of need to find themselves, etc. And that led me to becoming part of MIM, which is Masters in Marketing. And I worked with my very good friend, Rowan Williams, who had set up this marketing agency. Excuse me. Who had set up this marketing agency. And he said, I need someone to come and help me. You know, you've got all the startup experience, you've got all the customer experience, you've got a level of marketing, because I've run my own business for 6 years from the age of 21 as well. He said, but I will teach you everything you need to know with regards to marketing. Like, whatever you can do, I can make it better. I was like, okay, like that sounds like an opportunity. So I did 3 years with him, and it was just amazing. We had such a great time. And when companies talk about having a sort of a real family vibe, he was, that whole thing was exactly that. There was 8 of us. We just got on fantastically, and I learned so much. However, the opportunity came up with Avocado Property, who are the flagship brand within the Momentum portfolio. And they were looking for a marketing manager. So I decided to pitch the agency. But halfway through that interview, because I'd obviously done 4 years as an estate agent as well, Ian Macbeth, who I was on the call with, just suddenly went, are you on your own? I'm like, that's a very weird question to ask. He's just like, well, I was just wondering whether you wanted the role. I was like, oh, well, I don't not want the role, so let's have a chat. So everything that Rowan taught me, combined with those 4 years of estate agency. It was just the perfect mix. And I'd been following Avocado and some of the other brands that are associated underneath the Momentum portfolio for quite a while. And it was just a match made in heaven.
I've certainly seen plenty of posts in the hot pink hoodies and the avocados everywhere. There we go, bringing it in. And I guess when we talk about customer experience, your customers are the estate agents themselves, the self-employed people that are running their own business. You're there to provide them with that level of customer experience and support.
Yeah, absolutely. So we refer to our agents, mortgage brokers, self-employed will writers, and self-employed surveyors. They are all our internal customers. So basically what I came in to do was, I think they were originally looking for a marketing manager to fill Callie, who had been here beforehand. But because of the experience of actually building an agency, we kind of sat down and went, you know what, we could build out a fully functioning marketing agency within the portfolio to deliver into all of the brands. So yeah, ultimately I'm here and my team are here to make their lives easier. And it works because whilst they're internal customers, they're ultimately your colleagues as well. So I think you get a lot more out of the relationship because we're not worried in the sense that, in the way that an external marketing agency would be, where you're always trying to find new business and have a sales hat on as well as do your day-to-day. So we can just purely focus on marketing and that customer experience side of things, which just, it's such a breath of fresh air.
And I guess the game for estate agents has changed a lot. You know, obviously you've got the aggregators, but it's not a case of waiting until the weekly paper comes out and there's like a middle section of all the properties and it's pretty stagnant and it's just about the board. From what I've seen of your work and what Avocado do, it's all about the personality and building that layer of personal trust as well.
100%. So yeah, even when I was in a estate agency, the papers were still a thing. And I'd like to think that I'm not that old, but apparently I am. And then that was kind of slowly being replaced by Rightmove at the time. And I think pretty much by the time that I'd come out of agency, the newspapers were pretty much dead. But Rightmove came along, and then it was kind of the thing of, okay, we just bung the house onto Rightmove, and then that will do its thing. And Rightmove is great in the sense of it provides an insight for the end consumer. It's not necessarily the be-all and end-all tool for estate agents. If they want to be able to give a top-notch customer experience, they need to be able to come in and say, we do so much more than placing your house on Rightmove, because ultimately, if you're paying your fees, anybody can do that. And to that point, we have a blueprint. We have a trademarked hashtag for hashtag beat the portals. So it's not about beating Rightmove and Zoopla and On the Market and all of that. It's about just providing another avenue in which to market a property. And the end consumer for the estate agents love it, because the agents will launch it. They'll say, this is my hashtag beat the portals. I've got this beautiful 3-bed semi-detached in Shinfield. It's got, and we sell sort of all the lifestyle benefits of being there. But we have up to, so over 30% of pre-portal sales for the brand come from that strategy. And quite often, if it hasn't sold through that, then it will be a gauge on whether the price is right, whether the marketing's okay, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a platform for the agents to actually have a conversation with their customer and say, look, this is the response that we got on the 2-week pre-launch before Rightmove. This is what people are saying. This is what they like about it. This is what they don't. Based on the fact that you wanted to put it on at 550, I really have a very, very strong, not gut feel, but indication by the reaction that it's actually a 520 property. And it's just such a good tool to just be able to provide something else. Because again, it's very easy to say, we put your house on social media, but unless you've got a plan and a budget and an idea of how you're doing that on behalf of the customer, it can just fall a bit flat.
I think it's really interesting because I remember the frustration of trying to sell property quite a few years ago now. But the only feedback I ever had from the estate agent was, have you considered lowering the price? And there was nothing around what, and this was probably before the socials were really kicking off, maybe the nascent days of Instagram, maybe.
Yeah.
But there was never that thinking outside of the box of, let's go and show, if I'm in Stansted, so it's like, well, let's take a wander around the area. Let's go and have a look at a local coffee shop. Let's break the format, because when you're on the portals, it's very much, here's some photos, here's a floor plan, here's the square footage. It's templated for a reason. So this gives you the chance for your agents to differentiate.
100%. And that is our USP to the agents when they come on board, is that not only do they have the backing of a fully instated marketing agency, they have the training, the support, the guidance, and even things like we had our group meet this week. And we do that sort of every 60 days where everybody gets into a room and you kind of go through this cycle of new agents come in and, you give them all the information and details, but there's such a lot for them to take on because they're kind of shedding the skin of how they've done agency previously. And they're coming into this new way of working. And that's not just the fact that they're doing it the avocado way. It's the fact that a lot of them have come from employment to self-employment as well. So it's a complete change of mindset. So they'll come in and you just give them all this information. They go, oh my God, okay. And they start kind of working on things. So inevitably we go through the cycle of maybe every third time we have this thing called the solution seat, and someone will sit in the solution seat and say, how do I get more traction with my marketing? And the old timers, I say it's a 5-year-old business, but you've got our Dan and Neil's of Shinfield, for example. These are agents that between them are turning some years between 300,000 and 400,000 as a pair, because of their approach to marketing and because of their approach to customer service off the back of that. And also, they are very selective about who they work with. Not in a knobby way, but in the sense of they will work with people with the properties that they want to sell. So moving families in that very hyper-local area. So they walk to most of their appointments because it's literally on their doorstep. They don't want something the other side of Reading. I mean, that's another Avo agent's patch anyway. But they want to be able to do it in that space and have that community built when people say, who do I use to sell my property or to help me move house? And they go, Dan and Neil of Avocado.
And that also, if they're staying within walking distance, it means they're part of that community. So they're also accountable to that community when people have moved in.
Oh, absolutely. And you can sense it. You go down their local pub, you pop into the Shinfield Arms. They can't move for people going, hi, Dan, hi, Neil. The landlord's coming over and giving them vouchers to give out on completions. They're like, oh, please make sure that you give these to your customers so they come and use us. And, they're in with the local football team, my old football team, hasten to add. But they're in with the community groups, and they commit to that as well. They become part of it. It's not just we'll bung them some cash. It's we'll turn up and we'll help them promote themselves as well. So it's like you say, they're accountable to their community, which I just think is such a lovely term.
And the game is constantly changing with how customers interact. For you, as that, looking at your internal customers, what's the biggest opportunity to create exceptional? What's making you excited moving forward?
What's making me excited moving forward is, that is a great question. It's like there's no limit to what we can do. If you've got the right people on the bus and they've got the right mindset and you're all working together, Avocado already has made a storm in this industry, particularly within sort of our probably the southeast, but we are based in Swindon, Solihull, Stevenage, and that's getting further and further and further afield as well. And I think the fact that we are selective about the type of agents that we bring in, even if they're coming from, like I said earlier, that sort of traditional agency background, if they've got the right mindsets, you all know that you're moving together in the right direction. Which means when big changes come up, or things like the budget's due this week, and we're all like, right, in the group meet, how are we as a group approaching this? And everyone went positively, because it's an opportunity, because every other agent, not every other agent, but the majority of agents will likely call the customer and suggest a price drop as the first point of contact. And then just kind of be quite doom and gloom about the whole thing. Whereas we're going, right, how do we action this? Right, we've already got our hyperlocal pre-budget content out. We sent that out on Sunday, talking about how it's going to affect people in their area. So people in Solihull, how the house prices and stamp duty and capital gain is going to affect someone sat there versus someone sat in Stevenage. And they will get that direct content. And then we as a group can follow up in a way that works for the customer, install confidence, because people still need to move house. If they've got a growing family, if they've moved jobs, whatever it is, the world still goes round, and we'd rather help people do that than hinder them.
I think also people want to trust and they want advice. And my world, we're trusted advisors. And you could be doom and gloom. So, I logged into a system yesterday and the latest release has dropped, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But there are positives, and you've got to look at what the positives are and what those selling points are and where those positive impacts are, because it's very easy just to reject change and go, well, this is a bad news story. And by the sounds of it, the knock-on effect is, we'll just reduce the price, and then everyone loses, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you even alluded to it earlier in this conversation, and that was basically the only time you heard from the agent. And actually, this is a great conversation, because most of the podcasts that I do will be with other people within the industry. So it's really nice to actually hear that from an external source, because kind of confirms, I know you are a data point of one, but it kind of confirms our thinking of, we're doing the right thing in approaching it in the way that, you can be doom and gloom, but how is that serving anybody? It's not really a great customer experience, is it?
Well, it reminds me of there was an estate agent, I think up in Edinburgh, that I met at a networking event, and they had taken on, and it was literally called a castle. It was a £4 million property, and it had been with the previous agents for ages and not gone anywhere. And the estate agent's like, well, I'm going to spend 15 grand on marketing that because I know what my commission is. And it was gone within weeks, because it was just to your point, there's no limit. There's no, let's just do this. Let's target the right people. Let's not just slap it on a portal and hope that it sells. And it's taking that extra level, because also it's not just the estate agents that's going to feel supported there. It's also the customers are going to go, this is, it's that desire factor of, I'm going to want this property because of the way it's being marketed.
100%. And I think estate agency has always been such a short-term mindset, whereas what we're doing here, we're starting to see it now, because our CRM system has got over 60,000 points of data within it. And people who came in and first sold with Avocado because they launched in March 2020, by the way, I don't know if you know that.
There's some stuff going on around that time, wasn't there? That was an interesting month, I remember.
Yeah, a few things. And Ian always talked about the story of he phoned Mike about 6 weeks later after he'd been in Sainsbury's, and he overheard a conversation between two people at the till talking about avocado property and the fact that there was these estate agents going around in pink hoodies. And he called Mike and he went, we're going to be okay, because they approached it with the people before property approach. And I think if every agent just embodied that mantra, regardless of whether you're selling a 1-bed flat through to the prime end of the market, then you're just going to put yourself light years ahead of your competitors, like the example you've just used. And that's frustrating as well, because prime end of the market, 15 grand budget for marketing it isn't a lot. Like, for that sort of return, with what you've just said that property was on the market for, 15k is nothing. Why wouldn't you be spending it?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do, Cindy. We'll take a short pause there, and we'll come back and we'll reflect on a customer experience you've had, and something that was excellent about it.
Okay.
Your call is important to us. Please hold, and you'll be connected to your next favorite customer experience shortly.
Welcome back to my favorite customer experience. I'm here with Cindy Slaughter, Marketing Director at Momentum Portfolio, and we're going to ask you about one of your favorite customer experiences. So, time to change the lens. Instead of being the customer experience provider, you as a customer.
So, as part of me actually coming on at Momentum, and particularly Avocado, my husband and I were considering moving. And we were considering moving to a different part of the country, and we just kind of got hacked off with the local area and just the cost of living down south. He's originally from Stoke-on-Trent. We weren't planning necessarily on going back there. But, a move was definitely on the cards. And I used to work with Georgina Patey when I was an estate agent myself at another company. She was in lettings, I was in the sales negotiator side. And I got herself and her business partner, Sarah, over completely uncontested as well. There was just nobody else that I was going to use. And I have some very, very good friends in the industry. Sorry, Scott Marlin. But I did phone him and say, I'm going to go with Georgina and Sarah. Is that okay? And he's like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. But just from day one, just that experience of having an agent who you can just pick up the phone to. And I guess, I get that she was a friend as well, but there was something in that accessibility. And I think knowing how bad the experience could be, having lived it from the other side, it just made the world of difference. Now, the funny thing is, we never actually moved. We've stayed here, hence the hot pink hoodie. But it still sits with me of how it must have felt worlds apart to kind of the traditional way of doing things.
And by the sounds of it, that service was there irrespective of the fact you were a friend.
That's basically what I mean. And I think almost there was more pressure for them because I was a friend and because I had the knowledge as well, which is always quite scary, isn't it? Like it's one thing going into a customer relationship with somebody who has no idea, and then you're the expert, you're the person who is leading the way. Whereas, from my side, I have the estate agency background, and then you've also met my husband and know him, and he is not one to let things lie. So he is a difficult customer in that sense. Because he's always got questions. He always wants to know the ins and outs of everything. He wants to know the data. He wants to know why, primarily, he should be doing something. So the combination of the two must have been quite tricky. And yeah, they negotiated that so well.
I think that's the thing. You come into it having that knowledge, having a really high bar. I make an awful customer when I'm dealing with companies with technology because I know how good it could be,
Yeah.
and I also know the whys behind why something is really bad as well. So yeah, very similar to Pat. And yeah, I'm not going to let something go if it's a really bad service. And when Woody was working with me, he would like, I came into the office once. He's like, I now get why you feel this way because I'm having an awful experience with, and it was like airline X, for example, and it was just like
Yeah.
he was getting nowhere. It's like, now I get why you care. Um, Sometimes too much. But yeah, it's one of those things in our industry when I'm working with other engineers, people don't like demoing and working with other engineers because you're not the expert in the room.
Hmm.
You're with your peers. So, you're with the people that know where the bodies are buried. So
Hmm.
you have to negotiate that for them, knowing that you can't blag it like you might be able to with someone who doesn't know.
Absolutely. Why is it, do you think, that people are so scared to not, why they don't want to be the least intelligent person in the room? Like, I am quite happy with being the least intelligent person in the room because I know that I'm going to really get something out of that. It's also great being the intelligent person in the room because other people could potentially be getting something. But why is it that people are so scared with that vulnerability piece?
I I probably have a whole other podcast episode from my time in pre-sales and engineering. And I remember
Mm.
going into when I was at Ring Central, we had our annual event at Las Vegas, and there was
Hmm.
100 odd engineers in the room, and I reckon I was maybe 100th in terms of technical.
Yep.
And I didn't care because it meant I could learn from 100 people in the room. And I've always tried to put the ego to one side and not be the cleverest person in the room. I want to be the person that's learning,
Hmm.
and I don't want to put myself on that pedestal because there's always going to be people that know more than you. So
Yeah.
that once you can get over that, then it's a lot easier. And I think the thing that really made it for me in my career was moving from just straight engineering into running a service for a customer. And
Hmm.
then to your point, you're not communicating with the smartest people in the room. You're communicating with the leaders who will be smart, but the technology isn't their domain. They need to know what isn't working and why they don't need to know why it's not working. They just need to know what and how it's going to be fixed and what the impact is.
Yeah.
And that changed how I communicated. You just take it up to when I have those conversations with engineers, I try and coach them to, you're not trying to be the smartest person in the room. You're there to reassure people and make sure that you can give a really solid description in business value of what you do.
Yes. 100%. 100%. Because I think so much, because there are a lot of people who do want to know the why behind things, and because we're proud of what we do as a job, right? You love the service that you're giving, and you kind of want people to know about it, but ultimately they don't care. Like, if I come back to the agents at the end, that we deliver to, they don't care how we do the marketing as long as they're getting the support of it. That's the whole point of having us here. Like, if I ever throw around technical terminology around marketing, if I go and say something about a boat set, you can just see them all going, "Oh God, here she goes." So it's just like, this is going to help you get more valuations and get you sold. Cool.
Yep.
Great.
And I think that's the thing. It's talking about it in outcomes. It's talking about it in a way that's accessible to people.
Yeah.
And normally ask people, how did it make you feel? And did it influence your behaviors? By the sounds of it, this inspired you so that when you then took on the role, you were like, this is the template. This is the foundation that I want to build as a bare minimum.
100%. And again, it was quite nice because I'd had that insight of how they do things differently. And then I went out on a couple of other vows, etc. With I went out with Dan and Neil. Feels like the Dan and Neil show today. But no, I went out with them and just saw how it kind of, there was nuances to how they do things. And yeah, it just made me think, this is something I know, and things are always easier to market when you know. From your experience, it's always easier to help people when you know what the problem is and what the solution is, rather than going, oh God. um, and yeah, just I there was just a sense of belief that this is what the industry needed and was
Yeah.
calling out for. And I quite like a crusade, to be honest.
There's definitely something in that. I know what I like what I do, in
Mm,
that I like being independent and being able to look at things in a slightly different scope from how a customer might deploy things, or how a partner might use something. And I always try and look at it as how can I make this useful to that audience? Not
mm.
how, unfortunately, how would marketing want this to be articulated?
Yeah, 100%.
That's my job. I look at it as distilling it down from that to the real world. And I enjoy doing that.
Yeah, 100%. Funnily enough, one of the big names in our industry, a guy called Chris Watkins, sent me a message this week because, again, we had our group meet and there we had cupcakes saying 2,000 families moved, because we have moved over 2,000 families since March 2020 as a brand. Um, and a lot of people would think, oh, that's not a lot. But when you're talking in the terms of bespoke and self-employed agents, they can only handle so much at one time before the customer experience becomes diluted or not particularly good. So they're going to have a pipeline of 20 odd houses, but they're only going to be working with between 7 and 10 at any one time to make sure that people are really looked after. And he just sent me a picture of a thumbs up next to one of my LinkedIn posts saying, this is brilliant, because you're talking about the customer, not, oh, we've done 2,000 completions, aren't we bloody brilliant?
And that's the thing, you're concentrating on what the actual why is and what's important, because, we've all seen it on LinkedIn. There would be other ways that would be articulated, and it would be the Porsche, or it would be the watch, or it would be the holiday, or something like that. But actually, you're getting it into we do this because we want to move families and we want to make sure that they're getting that experience.
Yeah. If they happen to make money off the back of that, then great. Well, they're all self-employed. That's ultimately, and we're all in business, right? But the driver has got to be the customer. Otherwise, that's just not going to happen.
Well, Cindy, if people want to learn more about Momentum or Avocado, where can they go?
So I'd say the best people to follow, if you want to know more about Avocado, would be Ian Macbeth and Mike Robson. You can find both of those on LinkedIn. We're prolific across socials, so Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as well. There's obviously the website if you're an end consumer who's looking to use the agents, but also if there happens to be any estate agents listening to this, by all means, give us a drop us a line as well.
And we'll put all of those links into the show notes, and we'll put some QR codes up, and hope to see you potentially around a field in Reading in June next year, as I think after a few years, I think I'm going to be returning to Endure myself.
Well, I've already got part of a group, so we are going to be there. You will meet Ian Macbeth as well, co-founder of Avocado, because he is a massive ultra runner. In fact, we're all going for a run in a couple of hours. So yeah, there's a happy Friday run club from the office.
Well, wrap up warm today, because it has definitely turned Baltic here in the UK. Cindy, thank you very, very much for joining my favourite customer experience.
Thank you very, very much for having me.
And thanks for listening, folks. Catch us again in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you for listening to My Favorite CX. Your listenership is important to us. On your keypad, please press a number between 1 and 5 to rank how much you've enjoyed your experience.